All right. Once again, everybody, we are back. Um, Before I get into the matchups, just want to give you guys a quick playoff scenario, really quickly. Um, First and foremost, I want to formally uh, congratulate Max. So he is the first person to officially clinch a playoff spot, and despite losing two, I think it's two straight, but it's been 2 years since he's been to the playoffs, and now he's going to make his way back into the playoffs, clinches the division title, and once again, congratulations. But I want to do the math and everything just in case everybody is kind of confused about who has a chance, what's the seeding. So let me get into that for starters. There are also one, two, there are also three other teams that are officially clinched, but because of point total and kind of records, they're not really clinched, and it's weird. And those teams are myself due to having most points. If something bad was to happen and I lost two straight, I would still be in the playoffs due to the fact that Brian and David both lost. So whichever one loses, and if they won again, I would still be in the playoffs no matter what because I have a lot more points than them. Also clinching playoffs would be Johnny and Andre. Now, both of them are also high up on points. I think Brian's a little bit behind Johnny, but for him to like surpass him in points, I think that's a lot to ask for. But they to me are still in the playoff race with 8 wins because they have two more wins than both Brian and David. And I think even if they were to lose two straight, they would still be in it because Brian and David, one of them is only going to get 7 wins rest of the season. So that's something to keep an eye on. Even though it doesn't say that it's officially clinched, I'm just going to throw that out there. Now, I'm going to go back into every team scenario. We'll start with the seeding. So right now, the number one seed is Johnny. So basically the way Johnny's playoff scenario, winning a division would mean he has to win this week, and then voila, boom, he's already the number one seed. Or not, excuse me, he wins his division, not the number one seed officially. For Johnny to keep the number one seed, he has to win out. Bottom line, that's all he has to do. Um, if Johnny was to be a wild card team, it would mean that he would have to lose two straight. So that's Johnny's playoff scenario. Most likely, you're looking at a bye with point total, and he has 1 win advantage over Max and myself, who are the other division leaders. Andre's playoff scenario. So if Andre beats Johnny and then he beats Brian the last week of the season, regular season at least, Andre would then clinch not only a first round bye, but he would also clinch his division. Now, if Andre does lose this week coming up, he can only fight for a wild card spot, and then at that point, you're looking at the fourth, five, and six seeding. At that point, um, so that is Andre's playoff scenario. All right. So now for everybody. Oh, now in my division. So right now I am officially the number two seed as of right now. 7-4. If I was to win out, it is automatically the number two seed. Pending on, I could be the number one, but that would require Johnny or Andre to win at least just one more game, not two. So that's that. A wild card scenario for my team would me being to lose two straight, and then Lewis would win two straight. So that's the playoff scenario with my team. We're gonna go on to Max for a second. So he is the third seed. He's 7-4. His point total is middle of the pack. It's not bad at all. Um, I'm I don't want to say an automatic win, but the next two games, well, the next one is very winnable. The other one, that's a toss up. So I think if we're looking at it, I don't know. He's probably not going to. He has no shot to get the number one seed. I don't think so with the point total. I think that's going to be really really hard because he's a win back behind Johnny. So I don't know if it's that possible. The second thing that I want to say is that for him to get the number two seed, I would have to lose one and he wins two. Because I don't think he'll pass me in points if we both split. I think he would just drop down to the number three seed. So that is his playoff scenario. And Max already clinched the division, so he is not going to be a wild card team. He is most likely either going to be the 3, or two and like a minimal chance of being the number one seed. I don't think that's going to happen, and I actually don't think it's going to happen regardless. So whatever. Now the teams that are alive for a wild card spot, but one is actually still alive in the division. That is Lewis. Just want to break it down really quickly. So he is 6-5. Playing for a division title, it would require for him to win out and my team to lose out because that would put him at 8-5. So yes, very interesting. However, Lewis will not get a bye unless Max was to lose two straight, and I don't see that happening. So he would win the division, but having him, if he was to win out, the bye is very, very, very unlikely, and I don't think it's even possible, to be honest. Fighting for a wild card, this is where things get interesting for his team because right now it looks like there's three teams. It looks like there's three teams in the playoff race. So with that being said, I am not entirely sure how this is going to turn out. But I want to just give up my quick opinion. Number one, for a wild card, he's 6-5, and he does have winnable. The game coming up is very hard this week, but it's not impossible by any means. And then you have Harsh, so that is a winnable game. So if he wins out, he's probably going to be wild card or division leader. But if he takes one of one, um, the best case scenario for him to make the playoffs would be for him to root for Brian in the matchup against David because I think his point total is not far behind David's. I don't know if Lewis's team would catch up to Brian's point total. So, say Lewis went 1-for-1 and he finishes off with a record of 7-6. Well, he has to hope that either David loses out, but if David wins this week, it's going to be hard. Bottom line, like say if he lost this week and Brian lost this week, they're then fighting for a victory and points. Or if Lewis won one and then Brian lost that, there's a lot of scenarios where he could be in. But he's still in it, and I give him props. Brian and David's scenarios. They are officially eliminated from winning a division title. That is out of the question. One of these teams will get a maximum of only 7 wins because they play each other. This matchup I think is very, very, very crucial because I think the loser, it's going to be rough for them to make the playoffs. Really, really rough because then they have another matchup in the quote unquote best division. When I'm talking about Brian and David with each other, bottom line, whoever wins this one most likely is going to go to the playoffs and they found a ticket to get on the playoff train. And the one who loses, well, they're in a must-win situation, and you have to hope that either Lewis and there's some other scenarios too that you're not going to believe. So believe it or not, there are also 3 other teams somehow that can make a wild card spot. The first one I want to start with is, believe it or not, he kind of told me that he was quote unquote dead and the funeral happened last week, but it looks like there might be a rebirth. I don't know necessarily. That's Rob's team at 4-7. His points are very, very good for a team that's only 4-7. So with that being said, if he was to win out, and then you have to look at Lewis. His scenario to make the wild card at the 6th spot would be number 1, he has to win out. Number 2, Lewis would have to lose out. And number 3, the loser between Brian and David would also have to lose out. So if all 3 of those things, it's hard to have 3 things happen and they're all pretty much wins and losses. It's not, it's going to be tough, but surprisingly enough, he's still alive. And that goes with the guy he plays this week, and that's Allen. They both have 4-7. I don't think their point totals, I think Rob's are better than Allen's, but Allen by no means, if his team keeps putting up consistent numbers, there's a slight chance he could still be in it. I don't think it's possible, though. And it's the same scenario for Rob that I just explained. And last but not least, it's Matt. But with the point total, I think there's no way, no chance, even if he was to magically win out, I don't think he would have a chance because his points are so low unless he put up a combined 400 in those 2 weeks, which is asking a lot. But anyway, guys, I just thought I would throw that out there for all of you. There's only 2 teams that are mathematically eliminated, and that is Paul and Harsh, who wind up playing each other. So this is a Thanksgiving special. I have to go some places, and then I'm going to come back. So I'm going to be all over the place, but I'm going to give my best in-depth analysis for you guys. Stay tuned. Okay, all right. So the first matchup is between the two guys who are mathematically eliminated from the playoff race. Yes, I know this game doesn't mean jack for anything for anybody. It doesn't mean anything. The most wins they can get is 5 and that's just not good enough. But I just want to give my quick takes on both of these teams because to be quite honest, it's really not, they're not bad teams. I'm going to start off with the first one, and that is going to be Harsh. Um, Bottom line with this team, guys, the draft looked very, very, very interesting, very promising. It had a bunch of low floor guys, but they looked like they were going to be consistent. I think the downfall from this team had to have been the wide receiver position, and he even said that, but like it comes down to that bottom freaking line, guys. Landry was not consistent at all. Demarius Thomas, definition of hit or miss, and it's very, very hard to predict. Um, he drafted some other guys as well. Oh, Travis Benjamin looked like he was going to be a good pickup, but then bad matchups, injuries, and the emergence of Tyrell Williams as the number one option also derailed him. Cameron Meredith was like a 2 week thing. Devontae Adams looked like he was heating up, and it looked like it could have been a good pickup, but he just cooled down. Also, we have to talk about some injuries. The Danny Woodhead injury, I do believe that if Woodhead was still playing for San Diego, I think he would be a serviceable low-end RB2. Because of Melvin Gordon, I still think that Woodhead would still put up RB2 numbers. James White's value was only really good for maybe like half of a week. Well, not really, but half of a month, excuse me. But the positives, man, I got to give him credit. David Johnson, there was no way he should have fallen to Harsh. Harsh, you had probably the best pick in the first round. Hands down, I don't care what anybody says. Best pick in the first round, I'll give you that award. I was on David Johnson, and if I was not picking within the top two because I was very, very nervous to take Julio Jones, I probably would have done a very risky move and taken Johnson as the number 3 overall guy. So congratulations there, man. I know it wasn't worth for anything, but you had to love to see the production as that was the guy who did not quit for you at all this season. And the quarterback play, you had two of the best quarterbacks in the league. Unfortunately, nobody was buying, so that kind of hurt as well. Back to Paul, really quickly, Paul. I thought you were left for dead at one point. You traded away. You were only getting minimal pieces. You weren't really getting superstars. I think the thing that really fucked you over really bad was number one, Alshon Jeffrey just being terrible, and now you have him again. But like when you had him on your team first, DeAndre Hopkins getting into a slump did not help. You had C.J. Anderson, but then traded him, and honestly, it looked like you won that now because he got hurt. But now Alshon Jeffrey hasn't even done anything. Um, It's trading back for Stephon Diggs. Once you got him back again, it's weird because when David had Diggs, he didn't do anything. But every time you had Diggs, he just put up monstrous numbers. But he's hurt again, so that also doesn't help. Jonathan Stewart, when you made the deal, I'm still not. I was not hating on it from the beginning, but it just a lot of things needed to happen, and they just did not. So that's really what happened. A little bit of injuries too. But anyway, guys, let me get into the matchup. And like I said, I actually think that Harsh should at least be a 5-win team. When I look at the roster, when it's healthy, I'm looking at it right now, and it doesn't look like a playoff team, but there's been some games where he's put up very serviceable numbers. Here we go. Eli at Cleveland taking on Derek Carr against Carolina. Eli Manning goes into the road. A lot of people think this is a trap game because the Giants. I actually thought the Bears were a trap game, and I was about to talk my shit because it was about to happen, but turns out that the Giants survived at the end. Now we're going to my man Vintage Harsh on the other end. Derek Carr. When I look at this, Derek Carr is at home, and I know Carolina's defense has played a lot better of late, but Carr has just been on fire all season. I like him at home more than I do Eli Manning on the road. I don't see the Giants blowing out the Cleveland Browns because the Giants haven't blown out anybody when they play. They're always in close games. I think Eli has a serviceable day, but I think Carr has a big day. Give me Carr. Diggs might not even play, so you have to check the status on that. But regardless, when he's on the injury report, there was an interesting statistic saying that he doesn't. When he's listed on the injury report, he doesn't do anything. When he's not hurt, though, he explodes. Considering he's on the injury report, I don't like him this week. I'm just following that trend. Devontae Adams actually looked pretty good last week, but Rodgers was unable to find him, and when he did, he dropped the ball. So it looks like that's the Devontae Adams that everybody knows. I still think he has a ton of upside, though, however. So I think between Diggs and Adams, if both of them play, I'm not huge on any of them. Willie Snead, Kendall Wright. I actually think this could be a big Willie Snead day. You're seeing defense is really key on Michael Thomas now. But when we talk about the Saints, I believe the statistic is that Cooks is the one to go off at home. And Willie Snead is a coin flip. However, the Rams do have good perimeter corners like Tremaine Johnson, and they just somebody else got suspended. I think his name's Hill, his last name. So Snead might be good over the middle in this game, and honestly, I think Kendall Wright is another very very sneaky play. If you look at, and I'll throw this out of the statistics in Lewis's matchup, if you look at the Chicago Bears, they have limited number one wide receivers all season. The only one to do well was T.Y. Hilton, and he does not exclusively play on the outside. He lines up in the slot, but you name it, guys. Mike Evans was limited. Odell Beckham was limited. Allen Robinson was limited. And these aren't scrubs by any means. Hopkins to a point was limited. He scored, but he did not get a lot of receiving yards. I don't know if they played. Bottom line, guys, I'm getting to the point. Number one wide receivers, they do not do so well, so I think this could be a really good, sneaky Kendall Wright game. LeGarrette Blount and Jonathan Stewart taking on David Johnson and James White. Well, the emergence of Dion Lewis will probably kill James White. This might be the last week you have of James White. Jonathan Stewart against Oakland. Gotta like that matchup. Miller looked good against them last week. I do not like Blunt a lot against the Jets. I think this is a scat back Dion Lewis or James White type of game. So the battle of the New England backs, which one is going to step up? I actually don't like either of these guys, but I would go to the safe pick with James White. But needless to say, the man, the beast, David Johnson. When I played him this year, he scored 30 plus both times. He is a stud, guys. Watch out for him next year. And I think the running back advantage goes to Harsh. Witten against Washington, taking on Fedorowicz against San Diego. CJ Fedorowicz is helping out Brock Osweiler a little bit, and I'm not going to say it's helping his development because I still think Osweiler sucks. However, Fedorowicz finds ways to get open for him on those short and intermediate routes. Jason Witten, really, I think the Cleveland game was such a fluke. I'm very, very happy that you used that claim, Paul, because I really didn't want to use my claim on Jason Witten. I wanted somebody else. So, once again, thank you, and I'm not very big on Jason Witten. Latavius Murray, very impossible to predict. Matt Forte against New England. Game flow can kind of get out of hand in this game for him. Landry scored, is against San Fran, whatever. Meredith, I don't even know what the quarterback situation anymore. It's just an ugly situation at the flexes, I think. But obviously Murray and Forte are the better players than Landry and Meredith. So I'll give Paul on that one. Time for me to pick a winner. Giants D could feast as well. I wanna mention that. Tampa's D. What the? Honestly, like wow. I wouldn't have called that in a million years. So keys to victory, man. Carr would have to go off. Johnson would have to go off. And you got to hope that you win the New England back. And I think everything else is kind of unspectacular. Kendall Wright, I think, is a wild card of a play. And then that leaves me with Paul's team. It's going to be interesting, but I'm going to have to go with the fact that, you know what? I don't know. I might as well take Harsh because I know he's projected to lose, but I kind of like more explosion from him. And that is my take. All right, so on this matchup, I'm going to go a lot really, really quickly because I got to go. And then I'm going to do the other matchups. My tone is going to be less fast paced, at least when I'm talking. And this matchup looks like it doesn't mean shit, but there's a slight possibility that it could actually mean a lot pending on other outcomes. Rob versus Allen. Both of these teams are really good second half of the season teams. I think the first half, both Allen you knew wasn't happening, and Rob just couldn't figure it out from there in the beginning. Let's get into it. Brady taking on Marcus Mariota. Well, Mariota's been red hot. I'll give him that. Brady, But this Jets secondary is really bad. The only thing that I worry about with Tom Brady against the Jets is the vertical threat. If you're going to beat the Jets, it's going deep over the top, and you can't necessarily rely on Gronk all the time over the middle to do that. And Brady does not perform that well historically against the Jets in New York. In New York. But regardless, this Jets team sucks. So with that being said, I do like Brady, but that's my only concern is the vertical threat. And when it comes to Mariota, I think he'll still be serviceable, but I think there's more potential for a 30-point game with Brady than there is Mariota. I think his potential is like low 20s. Edelman against the Jets, he's always a Jet killer. You might as well throw him out there. Amari Cooper taking on Michael Thomas and Golden Tate. Right off the bat, I think this is a really, really good matchup with Edelman and Cooper. I don't like Thomas and I don't like Tate. Well, Michael Thomas, I think, is a coin flip because Tremaine Johnson does a really good job of eliminating perimeter outside receivers, and it's either going to be Cooks or Thomas. I don't know which one, but I'm not going to say Michael Thomas is going to be the dude because he could be the one getting shadowed. Tate had a really decent game against Minnesota, but it was a very gay touchdown at the end, to say the least. I think they just downgraded. It was Newman or Munnerlin. I don't know which one is out. One of them is playing. Regardless, I still think they're going to limit this Detroit Lions offense because their defense, who knows? Maybe they have their swag back. I don't know. Regardless, I really like Cooper and I really like Edelman. Ware and Freeman taking on Hill and Booker. Jeremy Hill's interesting now. Without Gio Bernard, can this guy get the bulk of every freaking carry? Something tells me the answer is no, but it wouldn't shock me. Booker, ugh. I don't even know, man. This guy, I was all in. I was trading a whole bunch of crap for him, but he's getting the workload, which is always a positive sign, and they're at home. So that is something I do like for him. Spencer Ware against Denver. Now, if this was last year, we would have all been off of this. However, I'm actually going to take between the running back matchup, as crazy as it sounds, I might take Booker. Denver's defense is well rested off of the bye. And Ware hasn't done anything recently. Devonta Freeman, another one I'm not so big on. If Coleman comes back, I think that really eats into him. But I don't know. He just has not looked like he was last year. It's just, I don't know if defenses have figured him out. There are times, though, where it's not necessarily his fault, but you could just tell that the coaching staff is being very, very cautious with Freeman. So I am not big on that at all. And at that point, I'm going to give a draw because I think Booker will do better than Ware, but I think the other two are a toss up. And I'm not saying that Booker gets like a 30-point game, so let me toss it up there. Graham or Gronk? Ooh, this looks like it could be a close one. If this was 2 years ago, too, man, this would have been awesome. But it's a classic matchup of old school tight ends. Gronk has to be healthy. Gronk kills the Jets, so I'm gonna go by that logic. And I would not be shocked though if Graham had a good game. If there was one guy on the Detroit Lions other than Theo Riddick to have a day, it would be Eric Ebron. But to be honest, I'm really not big on the Detroit Lions against Minnesota. They didn't look good the last time, so yeah. I, yeah, I don't know. But regardless, the fact that Le'Veon Bell is in there it cancels out the question mark with the flexes. I know Devontae Parker's looked pretty nasty of recently. Is 8 targets, 10 targets, developing into more of a possession too, not just the big guy, the big play guy. So if he's adding in more routes to his repertoire, I like that. Um, but my issue with San Francisco is if this team gets up in a lead really big, it could all be all Jay Ajayi, and I know everybody's gonna say that, but because if you think about it, Devontae Parker has came in through games where they were either behind or they've been close, and if this game gets out of hand, I see Tannehill maybe throwing maybe 25 passes in this game. To be honest, not a lot. Tennessee's defense a great streamer against Chicago, especially if it's Matt Barkley. But Buffalo I really like against Jacksonville as well. Time for myself to pick a winner. Well, we know we're running the Pat stack, and against the Jets, why not? So I think that's going to work. If Allen was to win, he would need Mariota to keep pace with Brady, Michael Thomas to have a good game. One of your Detroit options would have to work. I really don't think two. The last time two did happen, but I don't see Minnesota's defense being like that. They've gotten a lot of guys healthy too since the last time that they played, so maybe that happens. Booker, and then you have Spencer Ware. it's going to be a tough call. Rob is like the 1 point favorite in this matchup. Wow. With that being said, I know Le'Veon Bell plays on Thanksgiving, and it's a really tasty matchup because that could really kill a lot of things for Rob. Oh, I'm looking at this. If Le'Veon Bell's not slotted in here, I probably would comfortably say Rob, but that. Oh, man, let me see. I think Brady explodes. I think Edelman has a floor game. I think Cooper explodes. I'm just going by explosion here. I think Gronk explodes. So that's one, two, three explosions. And for Allen, I think it's like two. So by that logic, I'd probably just go Rob. It's a tough one, though, because I really can see Allen pulling off this victory. But I think it's a toss. I think Michael Thomas becomes the X factor. If he's not shadowed, then hey, that could be the X factor. But because of the uncertainty, I'll go with Rob. Alrighty then. So now we are now on to the next matchup. It is matchup number 3. Basically, the tale of this matchup. One team, people could not believe that this team was on a 4-game winning streak. And ever since then, it is now a 7-game losing streak. The bleeding just does not stop with this guy. He's kind of still in it, but it's probably impossible with the amount of points that he's going to have to produce, and with injuries and some other picks just not working out. The champ will not be reappearing in the playoffs this season. And then he takes on the only man to clinch, and it's Max. Alright, so bottom line, this is a very important matchup for Max if he looks to secure a bye in the first round of the playoffs. Now, I could have just usually breezed by this matchup and not put any thought to it, but I'm going to respect the champ. He is still, as of right now, the champ. He still has possession of that belt until we crown a new one in December. So, hey, let me just still evaluate these matchups. And I know Max certainly wants to hear his side of the story. So let's get into it. Bottom line, it's Cam Newton and Ryan Tannehill. The strategy that Max looked like he's putting up on right now is that he wants a safe stack. He's not looking for any upside because when I tend to stay away from quarterback, running back stacks unless it's like a Matt Stafford, Theo Riddick type of like pass catching back. That's fine. But with the matchup against San Francisco, I would say that the floor between Ajay and Tannehill, I think the floor is a combined 30. And I know that doesn't sound much, especially when you're using a quarterback, but that's like a floor in a worst case scenario. There's not much upside, though, because I feel like if this game gets really out of hand, you could see something like Ajay getting like a 30-point performance and Tannehill getting like 12. So I would say most I think is like 45 combined points, unless Tannehill was to throw a pass to Jai, and I don't know if that's really possible. But this is a matchup where he's favored heavily in, and especially without AJ Green, I'm not gonna talk too much crap about it at all. I think it's a wise play, I would say, not the best for upside purposes. Now, Cam Newton at Oakland. This game really looks like it can have a lot of shootout potential. And I know Newton's been very iffy, I think, this whole season. He has not lived up to the 4th-round draft pick that Matt took him at. He's obviously a very, very, very upset with that. That's, But I honestly like Cam Newton this week. I think this is going to be a back and forth type of matchup. This is a game that's going to be very underrated and not a lot of people are talking about. So I think Cam Newton can put up big numbers. I think his upside in this game is definitely a 30-plus point performance. Now we're getting into the wide receivers. This is where this whole thing just goes downhill for the champ. AJ Green goes out with an injury, so now Corey Coleman and Brandon Marshall taking on Jordy Nelson and Odell Beckham. Yeah, Beckham against Cleveland. Yeah. All right, yeah, obviously Beckham would do run circles around Joe Hayden. I know Giants fans might be nervous because this does seem like a trap game per se. But bottom line is, I don't see Odell Beckham not doing crap against the Cleveland Browns. I know Odell's been very suspect this year, and I think when we look ahead to next season, I don't know if he's warranted a first round draft pick because he's very, very boomer bust, and it's not him. I think it's very, very clear that it's Ben McAdoo, but I don't see the difference between Odell Beckham and AJ Green. I mean, this year coming up, I would have said, yeah, Beckham. I don't know about this anymore though, and I'm not a big AJ Green fan. Jordy Nelson, well, I mean, the guy still consistently will put up numbers, whether it's good or bad. Against Philly, Green Bay, I don't even know if they want it anymore, but it's at Philadelphia. I don't think any corner they have can keep up with Nelson. This could be a really big game, primetime game for Jordy Nelson. I like it. Back to Matt. Corey Coleman against the Giants. Unless they move him around in the slot and get dink and dunks, I am staying away from any Cleveland wide receiver in this matchup. Brandon Marshall, unfortunately, I think we have to stay away from him as well. The Jets have fully just said that they want to move on from him. He hasn't done anything all season long. He's just been a very big disappointment. Maybe Decker getting hurt is the reason why he has been so bad, but man, I don't have much optimism for Brandon Marshall against the New England Patriots. And with that being said, I think Max gets the wide receiver advantage. Can't hate on the kid. Well, he's an old man now, but Frank Gore playing on Thanksgiving against Pitt and Kenneth Dixon, taking on Jay Ajayi and Todd Gurley. Let me evaluate, because there's more to evaluate with Matt than there is Max. Frank Gore, look, I mean, I think everybody was pretty wrong on Frank Gore. He's getting low end number 2 numbers, but they're always consistent. It's not like he's hit or miss. So he's going to get that 10 to like 15 range, but he's consistently putting it up. Obviously, his upside goes way down without Andrew Luck in the lineup, and that goes for everybody on the Colts. The one thing though is he might get a lot of carries, and his body's going to take a beating in this game. So, maybe you can get a touchdown there because Pittsburgh is one on the road, and number 2, last time I checked, their defense hasn't been that well due to injuries and stuff like that. Kenneth Dixon looked very, very nice. I know it was a small sample size with just 40 yards last week, but you're starting to see him take away a lot more from Terrence West's value. Only concern I have is that with him being the pass catching guy, is he going to be on the field in a game where, honestly, because they're at home and Andy Dalton and the AJ Green-less Cincinnati Bengals, actually, now that I'm saying that, that could actually be a good thing for Kenneth Dixon. They might want to try him out. I mean, you have no risk. I mean, if they start West and then the game gets out of hand, you could see Kenneth Dixon maybe get some carries. But regardless, those are all speculative calls. I don't feel confident about either one of them. Obviously, Gore, I would feel more confident in. And then if I go on to Max's side of the ball, I look at Jay Ajayi against the San Francisco 49ers. This screams out like a big, 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 big time potential type of game for Jay Ajayi. So that's what I have to say there. The 20-point projected, it was at first 24. I thought that was a little rough. But yes, his upside would be in the 20-point performance game. Uh-oh, wait a minute. Oh, Tank looks good. All right, against the New Orleans Saints, Todd Gurley. Bottom line is this. They're going to feed him early and often. Here's what I don't like about Todd Gurley, though. They're going to be down 14-0 in the first quarter, and then they're going to abandon the run. I actually, to be quite honest, I don't like Todd Gurley. Obviously, you can't sit him. The Gio Bernard injury really sucks at this timing right now for you. I just think that when you look at Gurley's stat line, it's going to be like a 14 carry to 51-yard performance and maybe a catch for like 7 or I don't like it. I don't see a touchdown in here. If they were at home, I'd like it a little bit more, but there's no way Jared Goff is going to go toe-to-toe with Drew Brees. In order for Gurley to have a successful game, they need to win the kickoff, kill a lot of clock, and Gurley's got to get that touchdown. Because if New Orleans gets the ball first, they can still run Gurley, but this game could get out of hand, and since Benny Cunningham's come back, Gurley's catches have gone down. Tight end matchup. Rudolph and Will Ty. I'll take Rudolph in that one. Chris Thompson and Tevin Coleman if he's back against Larry Fitzgerald and Terrell Pryor Sr. Two things I want to note here. Number one, Thompson. I mean, nothing much really you could say with Thompson. He's only on third and longs, and sometimes when they have a play call just designed for him. Kelly is the workhorse right now. Washington wanted a run game, and Kelly's nothing spectacular. He's actually good at breaking tackles, but bottom line was Matt Jones was putting the ball on the ground, so they didn't want to kill drives. If Coleman does come back against the Arizona Cardinals, it'd be interesting to see what happens in the backfield because I don't think Devonta Freeman has shown that he can be a true workhorse running back. And creating Coleman in matchups, he could be a sneaky play against a really good run defense, especially because he's been out for a while. Pryor and Fitzgerald. I don't like Pryor against the Giants. I think they do a great job of shutting down number ones. Fitzgerald could possibly be in trouble. Trufant does follow people in the slot. He shut down Baldwin. I think the only wideout that Trufant has struggled with this season is Mike Evans due to his size. Fitzgerald could be in a lot of trouble. Regardless, I think the Cardinals in general, aside from David Johnson, are all in trouble because they are on the road. But with that being said, we don't know about Coleman's health, so I think I might. I can't necessarily call it a draw because I think Pryor, despite not having a good game, I think he has a better game than Thompson. So it's like a slight lean to Max. Miami against San Fran, that could be decent. Seattle on the road at Tampa Bay, though, not a bad turnover type of game, maybe. But bottom line, when I look at this, man, it's a lot always needs to happen due to the injuries for Matt. I do think Max will find his eighth victory of the season as he looks to improve. I know he's lost a few games recently too, so he needs to get back on track. And that's the bottom line with this one. Okay, so this next matchup, the fireworks are definitely going to kick off on Thanksgiving because there's a total of 7 players in this matchup from both teams, not one team, but one of the teams. Well, excuse me, 8 players. One team is rolling out 5, the other team's got 3. So yeah, this is going to be a very entertaining Thanksgiving to say the least. But before I begin, it is the battle in the quote-unquote worst fucking division as described by somebody in this league. Bottom line, I gotta just give some props up, man. This is there's no quit in this Lewis team. I mean, in the beginning, I wasn't buying it at all, and I was just like, yo, this guy's not gonna go away. And I give him props. I give him props for fighting. And now, he's in a playoff race, and it's not even for division. He also does still have a wild card spot hopes on the line too. So that's interesting. I know the points haven't been fantastic, but he's done a terrific job managing a team. I think that's due to injuries and due to what's the other word? I don't know, just shit that hasn't worked out, man. They've found it's almost like they're on like not life support. I wouldn't say like a life support analogy, but I'll definitely use it as very opportunistic or something like along those lines. Bottom line, been very impressed with this run. I think this is the most this team I've been probably the most impressed with because I know a lot of people were down on it in the beginning, but considering he was in my division, I was not ready to pull that card. And then the other team is riding team riding a 3-game winning streak. I am now with the max loss. I am definitely looking to fight for a bye. So I will definitely be playing, obviously, for seeding. And this one, Lewis's team, definitely trying to clinch a possible playoff berth, if that's possible. You have to see between Brian and David with the outcome. Let's get into it. So, Turkey Day. We got Ben Roethlisberger on Turkey Day, and then Aaron Rodgers doesn't play until Monday. So, bottom line, Ben Roethlisberger going into Indianapolis. Flat out, I'll mention it when I get to T.Y. Hilton. I really would have wished Andrew Luck went against Ben Roethlisberger because this would have been a fantasy glory day. Like, if you're into fantasy football and offense, that to me would be the game you would want to tune into. hands down. I know Washington and Dallas has a lot of appeal, but Andrew Luck versus Ben Roethlisberger, man, there would have been fireworks, and they don't have defenses. I would have taken the over if I was in Vegas. I would have definitely bet the over. But bottom line, going in, Ben Roethlisberger at Indy. Yes, I know Ben is so awful on the road. Last week I gave him a little bit of a pass on that because the wind factors were definitely big, and then they just rode Bell. Um, I think what Indy's going to expect is that, and this is me personally, not because I have Ben Roethlisberger, but Bell just he can carry a workload. You know how he is. I still think Bell gets his. However, I think their game plan, they're in a dome, no wind. I feel like they might air it out big time in this one. The only thing that might limit Ben's potential is the fact that Ken Scott Tolzien, go toe and toe with Ben Roethlisberger. The answer is probably no, but you never know. Now we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. Dude's pissed off as anything right now. Going into Philly, not the greatest matchup in the world, but it's not the scariest matchup in the world. Um, you know what? I don't think Rodgers has a scary matchup. Rodgers has been putting up these 30-plus point games because their team has been behind. You never would have thought that Aaron Rodgers would have to play like a Blake Bortles type of role, but I mean, shit, give me him in a Blake Bortles type of role, catching up or catch up slash garbage time, whatever the hell you want to call it. Um, so yeah, I mean, he's been on fire. His team hasn't, but he's been fine. So I mean, I'll give a slight edge because even though the matchup for Ben is really really good, man, you have two factors: road, superstition, split, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and not to mention the fact that Scott Tolzien and not Andrew Luck. Wide receivers, two beasts on Thanksgiving. You got AB and Dez. Well, I'm gonna flat out say that I think, as usually, I think that AB will continue to be AB. Reports just came out. Now, Vontae Davis, two years ago, I would have said, wow, this guy's pretty good. He's been hurt ever since then. I just flat out think that with there's a reports too that he's limping all over the practice field and he's even iffy. I think Brown gets his. Brown is Brown. I don't need to go too much in depth with that. Des Bryant, though, I want to talk really quickly about. So last time on Thanksgiving, Des Bryant went against Josh Norman, and Josh Norman won that battle, although Josh Norman was on a better defense. Then you have Des Bryant now going against Josh Norman. Well, in week one, people were talking shit about Norman, like, why are you not following? And Norman says, I'm just going to do what the team asks me to do. I don't want to be better than the team and think that I'm all that. Well, Washington comes out and they say they do not expect for Norman to fully shadow Des Bryant. Now, I mean, take it for what it's worth. I mean, that's a yes and a no type of scenario. I mean, he'll definitely be on Bryant, don't get me wrong. But will it be 100% of the time? I don't know. And when he's not, that's probably going to be the time that Dallas is going to try to test Washington because Bashad Breeland has been awful this season. So something maybe to keep an eye on. Pierre Garçon. Something I have to talk about Pierre Garçon. Projections have gone up to 9 now. He could be very sneaky in this game if it has a shootout type of a potential type of matchup. He's a possession type of receiver, but you got to hope for a touchdown with him. I think he's a touchdown or nothing. Like, I don't even know what you would categorize Garcon at this point anymore either. Like, I mean, the 1 year I had him, he was fantastic, but wide receiver 3, who kind of needs like a touchdown type of thing. And then Dougie Fresh, Doug Baldwin with Seattle. Doug Baldwin in the second half. People are going by that narrative. I just think that Russell Wilson is healthy in a matchup against Tampa. Not the scariest in the world. Then we go to the running back situation. Melvin Gordon, fresh off the bye against the Houston Texans. He should be all right. Carlos Hyde at Miami. San Fran is traveling. Hyde didn't look too bad against New England. He looked healthier than normal. I wouldn't say 100% healthy, but again, a guy who's going to have to rely on volume. Only thing that kills Hyde is if they fall behind in this game. And it's the Dolphins, too, so the thing that could work against Hyde, San Fran likes to run a lot of play, or like a very few plays, a lot of 3-and-outs, whereas Miami tries to kill clock, so that's one thing to keep in mind as well. I think that's what probably would limit his upside. Another Thanksgiving guy, Rob Kelly and Jerick McKinnon on Thanksgiving Day. So McKinnon handled all the workload. Ronnie Hillman gets released. He looks to be kind of the quote-unquote featured / pass catching back on Thanksgiving. And with Stephon Diggs in doubt, I don't know. It's a coin flip. I wouldn't say I'm 100% confident he'll get a lot of catches. Never know though. Rob Kelly, bottom line though, if he's getting the volume, like any running back that's going to get consistent volume, whether it be in that 15 to like 20 plus range, I think you have to roll them out there. Obviously, he's like very touchdown dependent because he doesn't get any catches. However, bottom line is with a volume like that, man, it's very hard to pass up. And I actually do kind of like his matchup. The thing I like about Kelly is that he's a good. He gets volume on a team that's not a run first team, which is a bonus, I think, because then the defense is not going to focus on him. Okay, Travis Kelce. I have this hate for him just because I think that he doesn't consistently live up to the potential that he's supposed to be. And he gets the Denver Broncos. In the matchups against the Denver in his career, he has not done anything, but that's the Denver Broncos. Zach Ertz, looked pretty good last week against Seattle and had a. It wasn't even him. It was a great design call that Aguilar fucked up. I know, Lewis, you don't want to hear it, but Ertz, I know last year too, and at the end he started to pick it up. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for here. In a matchup against Green Bay, it's not the scariest in the world, so throw him out there. Another Turkey Day guy, T.Y. Hilton. Well, my analysis with T.Y. Hilton, people are kind of on the fence. Now Moncrief is hurt. I don't know if he's officially ruled in or out yet. My thing with T.Y. Hilton, guys, a lot of people are like, oh, I like Moncrief more because Hilton's not going to do shit with that quarterback, yada, yada, yada. So then another analysis said that he actually liked Hilton better. I'm going to kind of meet halfway in that range. So Hilton was terrible with Hasselbeck last year, but that's because Hasselbeck can't throw. Okay, he's accurate, but he can throw for maybe like 10 yards. Tolzien's average yards per attempt was 8, which is very good. He does have an arm. It's just up for him to read the defenses. And if worst comes to worst, I think Hilton's going to get a lot of dink and dunks over the middle when he goes into the slot. What Yahoo has him projected as, if you look at the video projection thingy when you go on your phone and stuff, that's honestly before kind of what I was thinking, like 7 catches, 60 yards, or 6 for like 80 yards. Touchdown's a big coin flip, though. I mean, the only thing that does work in his favor in this one is game flow. But it's just something I want to point out there. And then I have Jordan Howard, who may be subject to be changed. I don't know, though. I still think he's a phenomenal rookie running back. So maybe I put Steve Smith Senior in. I don't know. Rashard Matthews. I mean, you got to roll with him. If this guy's continue to be consistent, man, why not? And then the waiver claim, you won Tyler Boyd. Not a terrible matchup against Baltimore. You have to hope for the best with him, and he's obviously not going to be AJ Green, but can he lead the team in targets and receptions? I think that's why people want to pick him up, because obviously it's not going to be Brandon LaFell. Defensively, Baltimore at home against Andy Dalton. Oh, this could be a very sneaky defensive play. I still am not buying Baltimore's defense actually being that good, but with Andy Dalton without AJ Green on the road, that's a good play. And now we got to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Is there swag back from the beginning of the season? To be honest, I really don't know yet because Arizona's just awful on the freaking road. However, I do like the way they match up with Detroit's offense. As you've seen, when people try to take out Marvin Jones with Matthew Stafford, his yards per attempt are minuscule. They're really, really bad. He has to dump off the ball because nobody else can go deep. Tate is a permanent intermediate type of dude, short. Ebron, you try, but then defenses look easily key on that. When they had Rhodes on Marvin Jones, it was 1 catch for 5 yards, and Stafford was struggling in that game. The only thing that Stafford has going for him is that he's been great on Thanksgiving days, and he's at home. Bottom line, when I look at this matchup, it's going to be an interesting one. Both of these teams really want this victory for obvious freaking reasons. There's a lot of Turkey Day involvement, so I might as well enjoy it. So we got A-Rod and Roethlisberger, so that should be a good show. But bottom line, I mean, it all comes down to, honestly, can the it's going to be obviously tough. I'm not gonna lie, but like for both of them, because I think you have Game flow that might mess up something. It's potential. I don't think it'll mess up too bad on my side of the ball. And then when you look at Lewis's side, I think Rashard Matthews' consistency has to continue, as well as you never know with Tyler Boyd. It's probably the best if you were to roll out anybody on your roster. It's probably the best guy you want to roll out. Um, and as bottom line is, it's going to be interesting, but I think we'll definitely see what happens on Thursday because there's a lot of stock invested, and that's pretty much my call. It should be a good matchup. So the last two matchups of the week, obviously in the best fucking division. So we have two teams 6-5. To be honest, man, without a doubt in my mind, the biggest. I don't care what anybody says right now. This is the biggest game of the season so far. You have Brian taking on David. Now, one thing I want to do before I get into this matchup, man. Coming into the Monday night game, I had I was planning out a speech, and I was about to just say how much this team has proved me wrong, and that's Brian's team, dude. Like, he came in, I did not, like, Lamar Miller hasn't been shit other than, like, the fucking Colts game. And the fact he lost by, like, .18, I was about to come up on here, and I was just be like, wow, that was a huge victory for you. I don't know how you're getting these wins. That's pretty freaking impressive. Like, because for one, there's been a lot of players I did not like on his team, and whenever I hate on these players, they fucking prove me wrong. And it's funny because the people I did like by his team haven't done shit. So it's just interesting. I was shocked though when Johnny pulled that off, and I was about to just be like, "Yo, man, like, wow, it's very very impressive." Bottom line in this one though, obviously it's a must win for both teams, but due to points and now that Lewis is kind of in the race because they all three of them have the same record, David I think is in the biggest. Both of them need this must win no matter what. But if David drops, that's gonna suck. Philip Rivers taking on Colin Kaepernick. So I saw a move be placed for Colin Kaepernick. Rivers' point total surprisingly very low. I guess Houston's pass defense is for real. Is it though? Because I mean, Derek Carr had 2 touchdowns to running back, so that was kind of creative. I think Rivers beats that projection though, man. Like, that's been low for Rivers. And then Kalen Cappy, bitch. Well, I mean, he's been phenomenal, honestly. He could be a starter the rest of the way. As funny as we're talking about Colin Kaepernick. And at Miami, not a bad matchup at all. Um, I don't even know. It could be a close draw. I think they're hating on Rivers a lot, though. I think Rivers can put up 22 points, not in the 17 range. And as far as Kaepernick is concerned, Kaepernick's got a really good floor. I think his floor is like 15. I mean, that's not good, but when we think of Kaepernick, we're gonna think of like 6 points or something bad. Uh, I'll say Kaepernick gets around like 22 as well, so I'll say like a draw. A Rob, Allen Robinson, and Jamison Crowder taking on Jordan Matthews and DeAndre Hopkins. Well, I guess you saw them try to get to Hopkins, but man, you're not gonna get the production. You're not even you might get half of what he was last year with Brock Osweiler, but that sucks. Jordan Matthews. Jordan Matthews looks like he could eat all day against Green Bay. The only thing I will worry about with him is that slot, so he'll have to catch something deep over the slot, which is very hard to do. But I'll give Jordan Matthews the benefit of the doubt, no less. Jamison Crowder has just been like the most consistent. Like, he puts up wide receiver 2 numbers. So it's just, and he does it in every different way possible. So against Thanksgiving, I'd be a fool to hate on Jamison Crowder. Allen Robinson at Buffalo. This I think is a huge Allen Robinson game. And I know I've been hit or miss with Allen Robinson calling predictions, but Buffalo to me, their corners, they look like they're supposed to be good. They just have not played up to par, though. They looked good last week, but that's because A.J. Green was out, and Gilmore had 2 picks. I think Allen Robinson can have his way with those corners, especially when they're going to get put on an island courtesy of Rex Ryan. I think Allen Robinson will have a field day. Okay, maybe not a field day, but 17 points. Thomas Rawls and Rashad. Oh, Thomas Rawls. Thomas Rawls and Rashad Jennings taking on Doug Martin and LaShawn McCoy. Um, Tommy Rawls. The fact that Pro Size goes down is like a gift. That is a huge gift for Brian, and he looks healthy, man. He looked really good against Philly. And against Tampa Bay, I'm gonna say Rawls can flirt with almost 20 points, no lie. Rashad Jennings against Cleveland. I know everybody's going to be on Rashad Jennings. I don't fucking trust Rashad Jennings. And for that reason alone, I say 7 points. I don't trust it. I don't expect this dude up. And now I'm thinking of what he did last year. Now I'm backtracking, but like I know it's against the Cleveland Browns. He's projected 14 points. I think people are trying to follow the track record of what he did last season and that he got 21 last week. And I also would be a fool, but I would temper expectations with Rashad Jennings. I'm just giving my prediction out there with that one. I don't think he hits 14. And if he does, whatever. I mean, it's the Cleveland Browns, so like obviously it's possible. But anyway, to David, Doug Martin against Seattle, no, I don't like that. LaShawn McCoy got surgery, but if you're gonna beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's by running the ball with setting up the pass. And Sammy Watkins is going to play. Interesting. So LeSean McCoy, yeah, I like him. And for that being said, though, I think I'll give the advantage to Brian in the running back department, even though I'm hating on Rashad Jennings. Whatever. Jordan Reed and Gary Barnage. Well, wow, this is not a bad streamer for Gary Barnage. And if McCown is queuing, I would assume so. But the Giants have been bad against tight ends and they've been bad against slot receivers. The only way to beat the New York Giants is over the middle of the field. But I don't even. Does Gary Barnage have a touchdown? Somebody check that. I mean, I drafted this guy. I don't even think he has a touchdown. Jordan Reed. Not he has not been Jordan Reed at all this season, and goes against the Dallas Cowboys. Some people think he's gonna have a field day. I haven't seen Jordan Reed be Jordan Reed of last season, man, yet. So I'm not. I'll say he gets his usual 9 to like 13. Theo! Alright, against the Minnesota Vikings, this is the X factor for the Detroit Lions. Can he get going with the screen game? Can he get going out of the backfield? Because these receivers are not going to get open for the Detroit Lions. Theo might be in for a busy, busy workload. But is he effective? I don't think it's a 20-point performance from Theo. But you know what? That 13 is probably manageable with all the catches that he'll rack up. And Delaney Walker at Chicago, why not? Especially when he came off a bad week. Yeah, I like that. Michael Crabtree and Wendell Smallwood. Well, I don't know what the health situation with the Philly backs is, but if one of them is out, why not? And Michael Crabtree. Well, now Cooper is starting to take over as the elite presence. But against Carolina, I don't think it's a bad matchup. He might get like 15 points. Do we have to talk about? Yo, am I reading this right? Why is Denver only projected 7 points at home against Kansas? Wow, I don't know about that. That is low. What did they do to deserve 7 points? New Orleans, however, is a good streamer. All right, time for me to pick the matchup winner now. Philip Rivers, well, like I said, I think he beats the projections. I think the quarterbacks won't become a factor in this one. I think they're within range. I do expect Allen Robinson to have a big game, but on the flip side, I do expect Jordan Matthews to have a big game. When you look at Crowder and DeAndre Hopkins, last season I would have taken Hopkins. This season I gotta go Crowder. Rawls taking on Martin. Give me Rawls and Jennings versus McCoy. Obviously it'll be McCoy. But Jennings could prove me wrong, so that could be that's the X factor, I think, for Brian's team is Rashad Jennings this week. Tight end, I'd still take Reed. Gary Barnes is a good matchup, but he hasn't done crap. And then when we look at Crabtree and Smallwood taking on Riddick and Walker, I think the workload might be there for Theo Riddick. The production, don't know. Crabtree, I like. Smallwood is a toss-up. Delaney Walker, and I might have to still go Brian. So the only thing that I would be concerned with Brian's team, to be quite honest, is those flexes if they don't hit. Because I do think Crabtree has a decent day, and if Smallwood gets some opportunities, you never know. But bottom line, when I look at this game, man, I think there's a lot more safer options with Brian. So I'm gonna pick Brian. All right, so this is a big matchup. Obviously, the last matchups are with the best fucking division. So we're gonna get right into this right now. Jay taking on the Dre. Let me break it down. Bottom line, if the Fresh wins, he clinches and most likely gets a bye. Actually, no, he'll get a bye. The only way it wouldn't be a first round bye is if I won out and then he lost whatever, But bottom line, he's going to clinch the division and secure a bye in the playoffs, and that would be big for the Fresh. As for Andre though, that team, don't underestimate the Dre. Let's get into it. This is a low prediction as well. Russell Wilson at Tampa taking on Drew Brees in Los Angeles. Well, the way I see it, Russ is back. Drew Brees is at home. Sounds like a toss-up to me. Tampa sucks. And as far as Drew Brees defensively, and well, actually, no, their defenses play well, but they still suck. Drew Brees at home. Goff is gonna be off the field really quickly. You gotta like Drew Brees in the combo with Brandon Cooks. They could go off. And speaking of Brandon Cooks, we got Brandon Cooks and Jones taking on Mike Evans and Randall Cobb. All right, let me go to the J side of the ball. The Evans and Randall Cobb thing to me looks like it could be a bad matchup for Johnny. I don't like Randall Cobb, and I'll continue not to be optimistic with Randall Cobb. I don't know. But then he has Mike Evans going up most likely against Richard Sherman. Um, Sherman does struggle with bigger wide receivers. He struggled with Jones and he struggled with Brandon Marshall. And Mike Evans is a bigger type of receiver. I actually do like Mike Evans. I think that 15 points you can change that to 18. I know it's Seattle and you might be nervous, Jay. There's nothing to be ashamed of and nothing to be nervous about. So throw in Mike Evans. Um, but I think Cooks can cancel out Mike Evans easily because Cooks is the guy who comes through for Drew Brees at home, and then Julio Jones. Frightening matchup against Patrick Peterson. I think that's a matchup I would normally be more scared of. But he is at home, and he does better with Matt Ryan at home. Um, it's going to be a fun corner wide receiver matchup. Julio Jones destroyed him the last time, but apparently the reason being when Peterson had it 2 years ago when he looked really, really bad, that was because he didn't know he had diabetes and his energy was like low. So after in the offseason they found out that he had it. So he looks like a better corner obviously now. So um, just to keep in mind with that. DeMarco Murray and a guy I had to cut because I needed to cut somebody, and unfortunately he was the guy I wanted to cut. And it's Bilal Powell, who's now probably you gotta hope that the Jets are getting blown out in games for him to do something, and maybe against New England. But to be quite honest, man, I've had this guy all season. He's impossible to freaking predict. And bottom line is Matt Forte's carries aren't going anywhere. And his touchdown last week was one of the most flukiest things. It was a lateral. I can't be optimistic. I mean, obviously there's some bias because I had him, but being a Jets fan too, I can't be too optimistic with Powell. I think his upside in this matchup is like 10 to 12, but I think his floor is what you see right there, like a 5 to 7. The pick is in Lamar Miller and Zeke Elliott. Elliott's gonna have a field day regardless, man. I think him and Murray come close. They are one of the top 5 backs in the fantasy football world, so I like that. Lamar Miller. They liked to run him last week. He looked kind of healthy to me. So honestly, with the running back situation, I gotta give a clear advantage to Jay. So this is gonna be a tough, close one. Greg Olsen and Tyler Eifert. I'm gonna take Greg Olsen. Reason being, without AJ Green, I do not like Tyler Eifert. I don't like him, and if he does do good, yes, he'll prove me wrong. But bottom line is, I am not 100% confident with Eifert. Because now he's reduced. You could sneak him in the red zone because you got to worry about AJ Green. But come the red zone, I don't think this guy gets many touchdowns anymore. Teddy Ginn and Adam Humphries taking on Kelvin Benjamin, and if Mark Ingram is healthy. If not, I know what he's going to do. He'll probably throw in Tim Hightower. Um, I don't like the New Orleans Saints back situation in general, just because it's kind of hard to figure out. And I thought Benjamin was a buy low, but he has not been great. Um, but needless to say, I think I trust both of them more than I would Teddy Ginn and Adam Humphries. Ginn did catch a touchdown last Thursday night, and Benjamin came out a few plays. He's not on the injury report with the knee, so that's good. And then when we talk about Adam Humphries, this could be a sneaky guy to actually go off because you know they're going to key on Mike Evans. Underneath, Humphries could have like a Cole Beasley esque game, like something like 7 catches for like 60. So that's not terrible for flex. And then Ted Ginn, always a threat to take one deep. Houston against San Diego, kind of sneaky. Kansas at Denver, also not a bad play. When I look at this, it's time for me to call a winner. This is tough. This might take me a while. Johnny's games always take me the most time to like predict. I think when we look at Johnny's team, I think the guys that are going to let him down more are going to be Cobb. I think flat out, I just don't like Randall Cobb. Eifert, I think is going to put up a dud. So with that, with those two not doing well, and there's a possibility Mike Evans could, but I don't see it. I think you really need Kelvin Benjamin. I think the X factor for Johnny's team this week is Kelvin Benjamin because I think Lamar Miller might get his like 10 to 12 if he doesn't do what he did last week. It's fine. You know Elliott's going to get his. You know Wilson's going to get his. Mike Evans is subject to change. Mark Ingram, I don't expect much from anyway, but I think Benjamin is the X factor. If Johnny is to win this matchup, it's due into the flexes. Because when you look at Andre's team, everybody knows that the flexes are where he's most vulnerable at. But when you go to the other top half, obviously the RB2 as well, but he's got a solid five with a tight end, two wideouts, an elite running back, and an elite quarterback. So I think you have to win the flex department, and that's why I'm saying Kelvin Benjamin is an X factor. And the reason being, when I look at Andre's team, Brandon Cooks and Julio Jones, I think will both pretty much go off. Maybe not Jones to a point, but he's still the vocal point. I can't remember a time where, other than Chris Harris and the Denver Broncos, like Julio Jones getting shut out at home. I can't remember the last time I heard that. For Andre to win, man, DeMarco Murray and Zeke have to keep pace with each other, obviously. And for Andre, man, when you know that everything else is close, it's gotta be, you gotta hope for that Ted Ginn home run ball because that really could make a difference in this one. But what do I think? Honestly, the Jay's been red hot, and he's gonna be hard to cool off. Despite me saying that Randall Cobb and Tyler Eifert are gonna have dud games, I gotta go with the fresh, and he might clinch a bye. And that is what I have for this week.